The hour was late, but the village of Kirchfeld still glimmered with candle stubs in upper-floor windows and wisps of smoke curling from chimneys. January snow pressed against half-timbered houses, and the river Isar fussed beneath a crust of ice. Alois Bauer, official bell ringer and unofficial keeper of everyone's secrets, lifted the fur-lined hood of his cape as he trudged up the spiral stairs of the Clocktower. The tower, older than the oldest tales, rose at the market square edge like a lone pine. Its clock face, painted cobalt and gold, had marked births, marriages, and war years. Alois liked to think the tower remembered everything. Tonight he carried, besides his brass lantern, a loaf of Frau Geiger's rye bread and a wedge of nutty cheese. Midnight duty in winter demanded provisions. Inside, the wooden steps creaked in a familiar rhythm. 13 turns, then the landing, then 12 more before the bell chamber. Alois hummed the Kyrie as he climbed. The acoustics added a soft echo that made him feel accompanied. His cat, Pumpernickel, padded after him, tail swishing. In Kirchfeld, no one questioned a cat on watch. Mice threatened choir robes as much as grain sacks. Near the top, Alois paused to catch his breath. 73 years of life had not stolen his sense of wonder, but they occasionally asked for a moment's rest. At exactly 11:54, he reached the ringing room, a plank-floored space smelling of pine tar and brass polish. On the east wall hung the bell ropes, 4 for quarter hours, and 1 thick hemp for the full hour chime. He set his lantern on a stool, pulled mittens from his coat, and stroked Pumpernickel. "We'll be warm soon. Only 1 ring tonight, then the village can dream." When the second hand met the 12, Alois braced his boots, seized the main rope, and drew it in a practiced arc. The bell above answered, deep, confident, a sound that threaded through rooftops and mittens alike. He counted aloud. 1, 2, 3. 12 strokes rolled across the valley. The last note quivered in the rafters, fading like a candle flame. Alois nodded, satisfied, and prepared for his customary slice of bread. And then a 13th chime rang. It wasn't a mistaken echo. Alois's ears, tuned by decades, knew an echo from a fresh strike. The bell sounded again, a 14th, 15th, 16th. Pumpernickel's ears flattened. Alois felt the hair on his arms lift beneath his woolen sleeves. After the 16th peal, the tower fell silent so abruptly the absence throbbed. "Impossible," he whispered. The mechanism could not strike without his pull, and the counterweights were locked. Yet it had. He climbed the ladder into the belfry to check the clapper. Everything rested where it should, still swaying gently from his official ring. No mischievous youth hid behind beams. Alois returned to the chamber, more puzzled than frightened. Perhaps he would have chalked it up to fatigue, until the next night when the phantom chimes came again, and the night after that. Word spread like steam above mulled wine. Villagers debated omens, extra chimes portended snowstorms, weddings, even an unexpected litter of piglets. Frau Richter, the baker, swore she'd heard 27 strokes. Alois, however, kept the true count to himself. Always 16. 16 exactly, echoing down the alleys at 12:05. The regularity hinted at intent, and intent suggested a human hand. One afternoon, Dr. Margarete Vogel arrived at the tower door carrying a wicker basket. A stout woman with sharp spectacles and kinder eyes than she admitted, she had patched Alois's sprained ankle the previous spring. "Herr Bauer," she said, "I come bearing strudel and curiosity." Alois chuckled, opening the door wider. "I'll trade you keyhole gossip for apple slices." they climbed to the ringing room where winter sun slanted through narrow windows. Over flaky pastry, the doctor listened as Alois recounted the 16 strokes and their impossible independence from gears and ropes. Could it be a resonance phenomenon? She asked, brushing crumbs. My dear, I may be a mere bell ringer, but I can tell forced oscillation from mischief. This is deliberate. Margaret tapped the edge of the stool. What if the extra chimes are a signal? During the war, resistance couriers used coded knocks. Alois considered. Kirchfeld's railway connected to Munich and beyond. Black market rumours surfaced whenever ration inspectors visited. If it is a signal, he said, someone expects it precisely at midnight, and only someone with access to the tower could produce it. Or, Margaret ventured, they might not be inside the tower at all. She rose and inspected the inner wall opposite the bell ropes, thumbing the stone like a physician palpating ribs. Pumpernickel followed, tail twitching. What are you thinking? Alois asked. That the tower is older than the records we keep. Buildings like this often have forgotten stairwells, priest holes, smugglers' chutes. Suppose there's a second mechanism, activated elsewhere, that strikes a smaller bell attached to the main one. Alois's eyes widened. We'd have heard a different timbre. Unless the auxiliary bell is tuned precisely. She rapped a stone. A hollow thud returned. They exchanged glances. Over the next week, they conducted clandestine exploration. Alois scheduled his tower shifts so no one would suspect late-night rummaging. Margaret brought chalk, calipers, and a little stethoscope she declared indispensable. They mapped anomalies, patches of mortar colder than surroundings, a vertical seam invisible unless lit obliquely. On the 5th night, Alois pressed a knothole by accident. A slab of panelling swung inward, revealing a narrow stair corkscrewing downward, into the tower's foundation rather than up. A gust of cellar air carrying a whiff of peat extinguished his lamp. By lantern relight they descended. Pumpernickel refused to stay behind, so Alois tucked the cat inside his coat. The stair ended at a portcullis the size of a door grate. Beyond lay a corridor cut through bedrock, high enough to walk if one stooped. Margaret crouched to examine a mechanism on the wall, a lever connected to brass rods that vanished upward toward the tower. She traced them. Bell linkage, she announced. Pull here, 16 strokes echo above. Ingenious. Alois swallowed. Then someone down here activates it. And someone outside must know to listen. They ventured farther until the corridor forked. One branch angled north toward the river, the other south toward the forest. They followed the north passage 300 paces until an iron ladder climbed into dimness. At the top, a hatch opened beneath the covered bridge spanning the Isar. Closing it carefully, they heard muffled wheels, an ox cart crossing above. Smugglers, Alois murmured. The tower bell tells them the path is clear for transferring goods. Returning by lantern glow, they explored the south fork. It ended behind the sacristy of St. Ottilie's church. Crates lay neatly stacked, coffee beans, French silk, and boxes stenciled with Copenhagen pipe tobacco, luxuries banned or taxed beyond reach. Margaret lifted a lid. Black market. Someone in our village is running quite an enterprise. A metallic click made them freeze. Footsteps scuffed the corridor. Alois doused the lantern. Darkness crowded close. Voices approached, 2 men conversing in low Bavarian dialect. Extra Chimes worked a treat, one said. Last night's haul is halfway to Innsbruck. Good. Tonight we add the medicines. The broker pays double. A flare scratched. Lamplight revealed their silhouettes. Alois recognized the taller man's limp. Joseph Stein, owner of the Riverside Brewery. The second, burly and clean-shaven, was Deputy Mayor Kurt Lindner. Alois's heart hammered. Joseph and Kurt set their crate beside others, then turned back. When their footsteps faded, Alois allowed breath. "Kirchfeld's leaders," he whispered to Margaret. "No wonder inspections miss everything." "We need proof, and we need to stop the next transfer," she replied. "Else the contraband leaves and they escape." Alois frowned. "Tomorrow night is Epiphany Vigil. Half the village will be at church. Perfect cover for them." They carried one small crate marked veterinary supplies back up the hidden stair as evidence. At Alois's cottage they pried it open. Inside, along with bandages, were vials of morphine stamped Armée Reserve. War stock stolen en route to military hospitals. "We must involve the gendarmerie," Margaret said. "And risk word leaking? Lindner has friends in the district office. Then we orchestrate our own sting." That evening they convened allies. Brother Matthias, the monastery choirmaster, whose tenor solos could rebuke even the reluctant, and Greta Fink, the postmistress, whose network of correspondence guided the entire valley's social pulse. In Alois's parlour, they formed a plan over steins of malty dunkel. On the 6th of January, Kirchfeld woke to bright sun, bells and children, chalking C-Splemplarks B above doorways. Preparations for the vigil filled every kitchen. Meanwhile, Greta dropped subtle remarks at the bakery about extra police rumoured to arrive. Brother Matthias rehearsed the choir an hour longer than usual, ensuring Kurt Lindner, a council member who visited rehearsals, would overhear anxious talk of Inspector Generals. Their aim, make the smugglers accelerate tonight's shipment before phantom officials appeared. Night settled crisp and star-pricked. The church glowed with candles, parishioners huddling in wool shawls. Alois performed the 9 o'clock ring, then slipped out the vestry door with Pumpernickel in his arms. Margaret waited inside the tower, lantern dark, a pocket watch ticking. At 11:55 the passage lever would be pulled. 5 minutes later the cart under the bridge would receive cargo. By 12:15 the cart would depart. Alois and Margaret positioned themselves halfway down the hidden stair, with the crate they had pilfered now repacked. Behind them, Brother Matthias and Greta crouched, both clutching sacks of church incense, improvised smoke bombs. The minute hand inched. When the tower clock struck 12, Alois heard the bell strokes he created. Immediately after, a second set began, produced from below. 1, 2, up to 16. As Joseph reached the lever chamber, they glimpsed lamplight through the grate. He pulled hard. The brass rods shivered. Margaret nodded. She and Greta pushed the repacked crate forward with a thud. Joseph cursed. "Thought I stacked these already." Stooping, he examined the crate. Alois, heart pounding, tugged a string tied to its lid. Tiny brass bells stitched inside the wood tinkled in alarm, their homemade alarm. Joseph jolted. Through the smoke hole, Alois poured incense powder onto Joseph's lamp flame. A plume of choking frankincense billowed, filling the narrow space. Joseph staggered backward, eyes watering, and collided with Kurt entering from the church side. Both men coughed, dropping the lantern, which rolled and extinguished. Darkness threw them into panic. Brother Matthias swung the portcullis shut, trapping the pair in the short section of corridor. Greta snapped a padlock through the grate's ring. From above, Alois tugged a separate rope. Outside, church bells tolled, not the stealthy 16, but a riotous clamour. The melody of alarm everyone knew signalled fire. Villagers poured from pews into the snowy square. Seeing smoke wafting from crevices at the clock tower's base, they grabbed buckets. Father Rupert organised a line from the well. In the confusion, no one questioned Alois, who emerged dusty but calm, saying, "The source is contained below. Fetch the constable." Constable Dieter Rabine, a simple soul with faith in rope and iron, arrived minutes later. Alois guided him through the secret door, which villagers watched agape. Coughing, Joseph and Kurt stood trapped behind the grate amid spilled silk and morphine. Their excuses melted like icicles under torches. They admitted everything when Dieter produced manacles. Over the next hour, crates were carried into the square. Gasps met each hall. Coffee, petrol coupons, rationed medicines. Among the spectators, recipients of missing hospital deliveries recognized labels. Betrayal tasted bitter on the cold air. By 2 a.m., the smuggling ring lay in chains, and villagers sipped restorative schnapps around braziers. Alois, soot-smudged, leaned against a beam alongside Margaret. Pumpernickel, having snagged a sausage slice from a distracted butcher, purred at their feet. Greta approached with a grin. "Post rider is leaving at dawn. Shall I telegraph the district chief?" "Please," Alois said, "and mention the brave investigative work of Dr. Vogel." Margaret flushed. Nonsense. Team effort. She gazed up at the clock face, now silent but serene. "Think the tower feels lighter now?" Alois listened to the winter hush. "Maybe. Secrets weigh on stone as much as on shoulders." Snow began, flakes swirling in lantern glow. Brother Matthias gathered the choir to sing "Es ist ein Ross entsprungen." Soft harmonies drifted upward, weaving with snow into a lullaby for the tower, no longer a conduit for greed, but again guardian of time and tradition. A week later, repairs sealed the hidden passages. The council, minus one deputy mayor, voted to convert the corridor under the bridge into a storeroom for the school band instruments. Alois salvaged the auxiliary bell, polished it, and hung it in the tower entry with a placard, "May honesty ring truest." On the first calm night after the arrests, Alois conducted the midnight chime. 12 strokes sounded sonorous and exact. He waited, breath held. No extra notes followed. He smiled, cut himself a slice of rye, and shared cheese with Pumpernickel. Outside, Kirchfeld slept, unaware that justice sometimes arrived on the 13th stroke that never came.